Okay, now I want to add in some sweet war paint. I'm going to hide the tattoo layer, the tiger stripe layer. And I'm going to create a new layer, a hue adjustment layer, hue saturation. I'm going to colorize and create the color of paint you want to use. Click the mask, hit Control I to invert it. Get out your brush, paint with white. You'll be able to see anywhere you paint now, you're going to see that color. But we want to get some custom brushes here. And I'm only going to use the brushes that came with Photoshop. So we turn Shape Dynamics on and Scattering and go to Brush Tip Shape. Choose a brush that you think is going to look like you're smearing on paint. I like this brush here. And you've got spacing. You can control spacing. You can control its orientation, the angle at which you're going to be painting at. You've got dynamics. Make sure you put it on pen pressure, unless you have a mouse. And scattering. You can see what scattering's doing. And so you can play around with all those parameters. And the brush size to get the effect that you want to get. So right now I want to change the angle. And I want to take the spacing down to maybe 10%. And there we go. And just keep going until you like what you're getting. See, just keep changing the angle. You can mess around with different brushes, spacing, scattering, to get it to look the way you want it to look, as if the paint was put on by a hand, if it was actually smeared on. I guess that's the effect we're trying to go to. And because it's an adjustment layer, if you don't like your paint later on, you can change the color. You can play around with different blend modes, but usually normal works the best. Okay, so second step after you get the paint on, you want to try and give it a 3D look. Right now, the paint is very flat. I want it to actually look like the paint has some thickness to it, as if there really is a substance on the face. So I want to maybe add a small bit of a shadow and maybe some bevel and emboss. So go over to your layer. If you haven't named it, name it. Then double click on it so you can get your layer styles. You can do a drop shadow, and you could uncheck global lighting. You can put it at the angle that your photograph's light is coming from. And change the blend mode to soft light. Change your opacity to wherever you find it working the best. And go to emboss and bevel. And you can see what this is trying to do. I take my softness all the way up. It's trying to give it a rounder look. Down at the bottom, your highlight and shadow modes. Put them both to soft light. And now you just have to play with your size and your depth to get it where you like it. You can use global light again. I like using 90 degrees. And so we can see a before and after. Before and after. I gotta fix up the shadow. The shadow's too far away. We'll try 90 degrees. And we'll go to 130. Do a lot of before and afters. So I'm going to take my shadow mode on the bevel. Just adding the shine more at the top. Hitting OK. And now hiding the effects, showing the effects. Just give the layer just a little bit of depth to it. Make it look like there is something on the face. It's casting a shadow, so it must be thicker sticking off the skin. Now we just got to click on the mask again, paint with black, go back to a normal brush, take off scattering, all the dynamics, and painting with black at 100%, we got to hide all the paint where we went over. And off of the face. And there you go, there's your paint. You can do another layer and then you can play with, like another color I mean, and then you can play with the layer, who's on top of who. And I really like the ability to change the paint later on, based on the mood you're going for. And you can play with saturation too. If you want to give her some purple paint, or even almost the same color of her skin, you have that ability. For this shot, I really like the yellow. That's how we're adding war paint in, and all we got left. What you want to do is, with the tattoos that we created before, once your image is done and you have your war paint on, you're going to want to hide the tattoos, because once the paint would have been gooped on, you wouldn't be seeing the tiger stripes. So you got to go to that layer and you got to paint black in all the areas that you don't want to see. So then now the paint is on top of the striping. I guess we got to get rid of the paint that went over top of her crown here. Get that green back. Anytime you can press the button next to the left of the spacebar to see any spots you missed. Back on the stripes layer. Only removing it from the paint. But you don't want to do this until you're done painting and you're happy with the artwork of the paint, because you're removing these skin markings, and if you want to remove the paint later on, you're going to have to redraw in your skin markings. And I doubt you're going to enjoy doing that again. So once you remove all that, the paint will look a lot more like it's sitting on top of the skin, and you'll be able to see the original markings underneath. All we got left is to add in the sparkles.